Hi there, my name is Itimi and you're welcome to another episode of Farmers Connect. Here I have conversations with amazing entrepreneurs and senior operators in the African tech ecosystem. Today I'm having a conversation with Fola Olatunji-David. He's currently working at Amazon. I'm working with early stage startups. We're going to learn all about his journey. He used to be head of startup success at Google as well. He has worked as venture platform. He has done a lot of early stage startup things in the ecosystem in Africa. So an OG. So let's learn everything about what goes on behind the scene in supporting startups, but also just his career journey and all the many things he could have learned. So make sure you stay, watch this video to the end, like it, share it, subscribe, but also mostly pay attention to the video. I'll see you at the end.
Hi there, my name is PC Timmy and welcome to Founders Connect, a show where I spotlight the best of African innovation by hosting conversations with leading and emerging founders and operators in the African tech space. The goal is to discover their stories, learn their ideologies, the obstacles they overcame, the lessons they learned along the way, and very importantly, to document their journeys. Do like and comment on this video as you watch it, and please subscribe to my channel. I promise there's always something fantastic to learn here. Enjoy the video.
Hi, Fola.
Hi, P.
How you doing?
I'm good. Oh no.
I'm good. It's been a long time coming, so
Finally.
I'm excited as you can see.
Finally, yes.
I'm a fan,
Hey, I'm
of
a
your
fan.
of your penny works.
I'm a fan also. I mean, we've been talking about doing this for a long time.
For a
so
long time, yeah.
I'm really happy we could.
Finally,
finally.
2023 is my year, I
Yes.
think, because I recorded someone earlier today that was 8 months in the making as well.
We're 8 months too. We're actually 8 months.
Pretty much.
I was hoping it would be 9 months. And then be
Just like,
then,
oh.
I'll crack a baby joke.
Okay,
Like, then,
well, I'm glad we ended at 8. That would be not quite. Okay, but I want to learn about you, right? This is this conversation where I just really learn about people I speak with. And you tell me as much as you were willing to share. So let's start from growing up. Where did you grow up? What was family like? What's like the key memories that you carry from your childhood up till now?
Yeah. So I was born in Nigeria. I was born in Ibadan, but my parents lived in the north before that. So you know how some people today get pregnant and they go abroad.
Yeah,
So my parents went from Bauchi
to Ibadan,
where they had family and support, and then they almost immediately moved back to Bauchi.
Oh, okay.
And so oftentimes when I think about it, where was I born? Even though I was actually born in Bauchi, but I was in Ibadan. I was conceived in Bauchi, and my first few years was in Bauchi, then Jigawa. Because my parents at the time worked with the federal government.
But you're from Ibadan?
No, I'm from Ogun State.
Ogun State, okay.
I'm even though I think of myself as a Lagosian, but I'm from Ogun State.
Okay.
So I spent my early childhood in Lagos. So I was in the north till about 4 years old, and I moved to Ibadan very briefly. Then 5 years old, we moved to Lagos, and I was there up until primary school, secondary school. I went to King's College, Floret. And I think when I think about my formative years, that's kind of like where it goes. I have memories obviously past that.
What's your favorite memory?
It's funny, when I was 3 years old and my older sister was 4 years old, so I have two sisters. One is 1 year older than me, the other is 4 years younger than me. So my younger sister wasn't born then. It's just me and my older sister. We ate a pot of rice and we let everybody know about it for like 2 years. They're like, mommy, are you and I ate a pot of rice? And I don't know, I'll never forget that story. But I also remember specifically playing football and kicking a ball I was kicking under the tree and it went into a bush and something pricked it. So the ball deflated and I was so sad. I couldn't have been more than 3-4 years old. But for some very, very weird reason, those two memories stuck.
Do you know why?
I don't know. I know. Now, it's not like we finished a pot of rice. My mom probably just gave us the honor of the pot to go eat.
But it felt like a mighty feat.
We finished, like we sat down, like two small children. The football one, I don't know. I just know that I can remember. Now, what's funny is for the longest time, I always thought both instances I was much older. I always thought I was like 7 in the pot of rice and like 8 or 9 in the football. But if you check out the date and where it happened, I was 3 going on 4. So, and I'm in my mid-30s today. So just the fact that those memories stick. In Lagos, we lived in Shomolu for a while, and we were very sheltered. when we lived in Shomolu, my parents were like, just enter the car, go to school, enter, don't play, don't do anything. Even though I knew all the Fuji music because they're always playing Fuji music, like outside the window, I knew all the, you know, mannerisms of all the Agberos and all of that. And then when I turned 10, we moved to Ikoyi. And then my parents were like, okay, we're in Ikoyi now. It's safe. And then I entered streets. In Ikoyi. I remember I couldn't speak Pidgin English until we moved to Ikoyi. I didn't know how to enter Danfo until we moved to Ikoyi. I didn't know how to join bad gang because I was sheltered before that. But it also formed, the way I looked at life. My upbringing, my parents, my mom still works with the government. My dad ventured out into private sector stuff. He was a pastor, he still is a pastor, and then he's done a lot of humanitarian stuff over the last 20 odd years. But my dad, he started his career in tech. He did some tech early in his career, and he was some of the founding guys who started Computer Village today.
Oh.
So, a lot of the guys today were the boys, young boys, under maybe some rich Igbo guy or some rich guy who has a shop. But the guys who actually understood the technology, that's where my dad was. And I remember him bringing computers home, and it's not going to be a nerd story. I just wanted to play a game with the computer. But I remember also the hardware component of it, where he was assembling computers, and I would always be there, just be like, okay, when is it going to come on so that I can play Doom or Minesweeper? Actually, no, this was way before Minesweeper. But I'm trying to remember the other. It was mainly Doom that we're looking forward to. But that kind of piqued my curiosity. So that's my early childhood.
Is that why you went into IT?
No.
So how did
So my path to IT was, first of all, when you have enough grades or you do well enough, it's first of all, you're already in science class. They're already assuming you're doing science. And I remember when I wrote JAM, I was so confused because I was adamant I was going to school abroad. Like, whatever, I'm just going to write the easiest thing I can pass. And I sat on my JAM form for weeks. And the day before, my mom was like, just go and fill this out for me, just do anything. I saw my neighbor coming home from work. He worked at KPMG. And I was like, okay, this guy went to KC. He works at KPMG now. He has a good job. He's like maybe 5-6 years older than me. I was like, what did you study? And he's like, estate management. I did not know what estate management was. I did not know. I was like, boom, that's it. Went to my JAM form.
I'm good at estate management.
And you had to do physics, maths, and anything. So I don't remember. Maybe I picked chemistry or whatever. But I was going to go study. The very first thing that was on my mind at that time was to go study medicine in Russia.
Okay.
And, my mom was one that was gingered. And then maybe when it was getting close, she was like, yeah, my child is not going to Russia. My only son, dude. So that didn't happen. But before that, my actual intro to tech was design. So when I was 12, 13, I started playing around with CorelDRAW, the very first version of CorelDRAW. And then my dad had a printing press. So I was very intrigued about the process of, getting an idea from your brain to a tangible item. Back then, what was reigning, when you're a bubbler, that's what we used to call it, then you're a popular person. I don't know. Like a big boy in secondary school. I don't know what the Gen Z is. We Gen Z. I don't know what we Gen Z. I don't know what we Gen Z call it.
Okay, if you like to think so.
But so we had parties, and for those parties there were invitation cards. So my parents were strict, and I wasn't allowed to go to the parties.
No, you're sneaking out.
No, I didn't. But I was making money off of it. Because
Okay.
I was the one designing the IVs. I was the one printing the IVs. I was the one collecting the contract to do all of that. So I was kind of popular. So it's so funny because I think about 5 years ago, I went to see one of my friends in the US, and he had a stash of old cards. And I was explaining to him that I used to do all of this. He was like, oh, he didn't know. I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, he has some cards, and we brought it out. And my small logo,
FS, just there.
FS, Fola FS, it was there at the corner. I had so that was my first foray into tech. And then, when the Russia conversation died, I just needed something to do. I'd finished secondary school, I was at home. Then I went to my uncle's shop. My uncle had an IT shop. He had a front cyber cafe and a back engineering shop. So I actually just went there to browse. And I went somewhere, and it was the end of the day. I was like, let me just go and browse. I remember going to the back, and they just got a first set of interns who were learning hardware repairs and all that. This was in 2003, 2004, I don't remember. Wow, 20 years ago.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. It's ruining my Gen Z branding. Anyway, long and short is, I went in there, I saw what they were doing. I remember the person, the trainer was like, who can show me what the hard disk is? And everybody pointed at what they thought it was. And I pointed at, this looks like what the hard disk looks like. And I was wrong. I pointed at the processor and he said, okay, this is what the hard disk is. And he told me what the processor was for, what the hard disk is for. And I don't like being wrong. So I was like, okay, for me to be this wrong, I'm loud about it. I need to learn. So I went back the next day and the next day and the next day. Next thing you know, I'm there 5 months in a row learning everything. Started hardware, moved into infrastructure, read and passed for my MCSE.
Was this before
Before
the
uni.
statement rise before?
No, so I didn't. Oh, by the way, so I wrote JAM, passed JAM, and then some Unilag students decided they were going to go and burn down the VC's house. So the VC's house was burned. So school was delayed. Exactly. So that I wasn't going anywhere at the time. But I started into tech. That journey led me into, my first degree was actually here in England. It's University of Portsmouth in IT, in computing. So what you call computer science today. So did that. Did a second degree in IT and business. Did a master's in business with focus on technology, and then did a final MSc in technology artificial. I know.
You like
I know,
school?
I know. Where are my
Wow.
glasses? Where are my glasses? I'm a proper. I have my nerd.
This is
moment.
like best degree. I think.
Yes, I finished 4 degrees.
Are you done? Are you
No,
there
I'm
more?
halfway through a PhD.
Wow, you
Yes,
actually like school.
I do. I'm
That's
look.
amazing.
So I like school. It's more like I like learning, and so it's less about liking
But
school.
formal learning.
I'm very casual about it. Like formal, yes. People think I'm book smart. I'm not. I just know what I'm looking for. So I treat everything as reference, and the way I store information in my head is I attach it to something. So if something I feel is useless to me, you cannot teach it to me. I would never learn it. But if I feel like, okay, the reason this is because this is the foundation for X, Y, Z, you can use this for X, Y, Z, I will get it firsthand. So so 4 degrees, currently halfway through my
To the
fifth.
5th.
But the doctorate that I'm doing, it's a doctorate in business administration, is actually purely cosmetic. I just want doctor on my name. I just want.
I dig that.
Yeah,
I dig that 100%.
Yes,
So I know that you spent, I think, first 3 or 4 years of your career doing IT support, like
Yes,
before
yes.
you transitioned to VC Adventures platform. What was that transition from, oh, I'm actually an IT guy, to I want to do VC and startup support?
First of all, you never stop being an IT guy. If you ask me
True.
right now, I'm still an IT guy.
Okay.
I work for an IT company. No, so more than the first 4 years of my career. So, first job out of uni was I worked with Stanbic Bank. This was before the merger. So it was Stanbic, small South African boutique bank in Lagos, 2007. And my IT infrastructure, everything I'd learned from the IT shop that I interned with for a few months came to the front. Infrastructure, server administration, networking, database management, application support, all of that. It was insane. It was like I was sleeping in server rooms. Like I was patching panels. I was running cables. I was fixing printers. And I liked that. I liked that until I met. And I've spoken about this on Twitter once. I met some guy. He was the head of investment banking at Stanbic then, and he went to KC also. You see, a lot of my life revolves around KC people. He went to KC too, and he was head of investment banking. And at the time, he seemed so old, but now I'm older than he was at the time. He's in his early 30s, and we were just catching up. We're just talking about everything, and I said, "Oh, he asked me what I wanted." And I said, "One day, I want to, be a bank MD." Again, different time from now, and he's like, "Well, I hate to break it to you, but you'll never be a bank MD if you work in operation support. Like, you need to figure out how to make your organization money, because saving money is never enough." And I mean, I don't know if he told me that to break my heart or to ginger me.
But, sure,
But I was gingered because the next day I went to ask, what do they do in this investment bank itself? And someone said the first step is to get a CFA. So I started reading for CFA. So I read and I was getting ready to write CFA level 1 until I heard that they wrote the exam in Ghana. I said, I'm not going to Ghana to go write exam that I don't need. But that whole process changed my mindset because I realized that I can save all the money I want to save in the world. But once I move into that, figuring out
Making money.
the business aspect of it, the making money part of it. And so when I left Stanbic, did a bit of freelancing for a bit. One of my clients hired me, Cardinal Stone. So I joined Cardinal Stone. Crazy enough to start an investment bank when the global crisis was, at the tail end, and it was still tough in some markets, but Nigeria was feeling it. I joined them as the head of IT for almost 2 years, from 2010, early 2010 to late 2011. It was tough. It was tough because small firm. Before me, they were outsourcing a bunch of IT stuff, and they had one person leading. I built a small team. I think by the time I left with 3-4 people, still outsourcing a little function. But I was very proud of that. I mean, built the first online stock broking platform. So what you do on Bamboo, Rise, and Trove and the likes today, Chaka, we built that for institutional investors in Nigeria and for private investors. I had so many experiences and so many stories from that time, including lightning struck my building twice.
Oh wow.
Yes. Oh wow. I was like, why is lightning striking my building twice? Like it struck, fried some equipment, very expensive equipment, networking equipment, all the phones, all the VoIP phones, everything. And there's a device called the UC500. It's very expensive Cisco equipment. Struck it, burnt it. We paid for insurance on it. We hadn't paid insurance first time. Second time we paid insurance. And while we're still setting up and all of that, and we're like, okay, 2 weeks later, and then basically every management meeting, there'll always be UC500 in my reports. I remember one of the partners started calling me UC500. But it was good. I was really young.
What was the biggest lesson you say you take from that experience?
I worked in some part of it was, I wouldn't call it toxic. Definitely if I was Gen Z, I'll call it toxic. But it wasn't toxic, it was just different. So for context, I finished uni before I turned 19. So 2 years in Stanbic, 21 when I left. I was Starboy. I was literally a whiz kid. And my freelancing, and a few months later, I was head of IT for bank at 21, 22. So I was young and I was used to things working. I was used to, you put this input, you apply a certain process, and that's the output. It was very controlled. Cardinal Stone was ambitious for me. It was probably my first foray into working in a proper startup, because we will pitch this and they would expect it in 3 days. And I'll sit down and I'll learn code. In fact, funny story, I met Shola of Paystack that period.
Right.
So it was in 2010. That's when I met Shola of Paystack. And the reason I met him was Shola's flatmate at the time. They were building in Okota. A lot of people, I'm sure he speaks about the story. They were building Mercurio, and their office was upstairs and they were living downstairs. Or see the other way around. But it was in Isolo, sorry. I would leave Cardinal Stone in Ikoyi. I lived in Lekki 1 at the time. I lived this direction. I'll leave my car in the office, enter Okada, like enter bus to Obalende, bus from Obalende to Oshodi, Okada from Oshodi to Isolo, and spend the night with one of Shola's friends who was a developer. I did that for about 3 weeks straight, just so that we can get version 1 of an app going. So I think the biggest experience for me then was, I was young, I had energy, and I was able to use that energy into just getting stuff done, and not complaining. Like complaining after, like, okay, these are the lessons learned, but you got it done. I remember going to meet my dad at one point. I was like, yo, this is tough. And he's like, well, enjoy it while it lasts, so that you can know how to, create environments that are not as tough as this for yourself as you go on. So I'm forever grateful. I'm in touch with the guys. They're doing fantastically well. But what that made me realize was I can build stuff, and I can build stuff in an unconventional way. So even though I worked in corporate, I was still building. We're still getting stuff done. Whether I was building the portal today, whether I was building a trading platform, whether I was building a management reports, management dashboards. We're just building stuff. So the transition. So that was like my last job where I was like a tech guy.
Right.
Moving on from there, I went on to do my master's actually. So I did my master's. I lectured in university. Then I joined an investment house in Mauritius as sort of like the CIO. I had a conversation around product, interestingly, but I joined as a CIO, so I was going to be the head of product. Then they didn't offer me the job for head of product because of some reason. And then the CIO left.
Right.
And then they reached out to me like, oh, so we're not going to call it CIO, we'll call it head of, just go find your title. And then when we were doing my visa, they're like, okay, it needs to be CIO because it needs to be high enough. I was like, well, it's not me. It's the government that's saying it. But I did that for a few months, essentially helping build risk models for investing across Africa and across India. So then 2013, I decided I was moving back to Nigeria.
Why? You're just missing Lagos.
I don't know if I should be ashamed to say why I moved back. So this was December 2013 when it first happened, and then January 2014, I saw. It's actually the first time I'm admitting it out loud.
Thank
why
you
I moved
for,
back to Nigeria.
for telling me.
Exclusive. I saw a link to Forbes 30 under 30. I was nowhere near 30 at the time, but I was years away from 30. But I saw a link to an article, and I knew at that point every year I would know one or two people, and I was like, I'm smarter than this guy now. And then I just looked at it that every single person that has been on this list has stuck to what they were building. They're 30 under 30, but they've had a consistent, story. At this time, I had done infrastructure, I'd done banking, then I'd gone to uni, I'd lectured, I'd done some odd jobs in between, still professional. Like I led the customer service of Facebook. There was a partner that was doing customer service for Facebook, and I was doing that, and then I was doing this. So I was just like, look, I need to figure out what I want to do
And just
focus on it so I can be on Forbes 30 or that 30.
So that was the goal.
It was I don't know. Look, you know what? Yeah, that was the goal. But then I was like, I'm moving back to Nigeria. That Nigeria is where my root is. So I was just like, but wait, I've only done a few months in this company, and I'm the only black person here, and I'm like the most senior person. I'm inspiration. I'm a beacon of hope. I was like, yo, everybody will be okay. Everybody will be fine. So I go into my CEO's office because I brought it to her, and I was like, yo, I need to go. She's like, why? That's when I realized, shit, this is a very silly reason on this spot. I said, I'll tell you why tomorrow. She's like, are you okay? I said, I don't know. I'll tell you why tomorrow. So I had 24 hours to figure out why I was moving back to Nigeria. So the next day I just told her, look, I think fulfillment, and I think I'll be happy.
So that's a story you've been selling for a while.
Oh yeah, story. I tell everybody that it was time to move. Small fish in a big pond. You have to. You start from steps. That's it. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the journey. I moved back, did NYC, met my wife. We were friends for a while, but I met her during NYC. We didn't start dating until much later. But I also now started consulting. For the Nigerian government. Started consulting for some education projects. So one of the interesting things about all my experiences is that it prepared me for, how I said being an intern prepared me for Stanbic.
Yeah. So every other thing was preparing for the next one.
Being a lecturer prepared me for, consulting on a big education project that had 78 Nigerian universities. Being a tech guy who understood so many aspects prepared me for understanding how to build the software and the hardware component. So I had partners in Asia. The key partner was here in the UK, actually, in Wolverhampton. And so I was coming to the UK very often, and at some point I was like, I'll just stay in the UK. And while I was trying to figure out what would keep me in the UK, I saw a call for masters master scholarship. So NITDA, bless their soul, NITDA they were doing the scholarship where they were giving, for masters. So I was like, oh,
I can stay,
I can
baby.
stay. They'll pay me money. They'll give me, and I'll have a master's. I said, okay, I'll go to UCL. There's this course I've been looking at, technology entrepreneurship, and at that time I was thinking about how to formalize supporting people, supporting entrepreneurs. So I ran I wrote the exam, got the full ride scholarship in 2014, and I came back to the UK. And during my masters, at the end of the masters, that's when I heard the word accelerator. I mean, not then, but during the masters was when I heard about accelerators and incubators, and I fell in love with it. And then I volunteered for the summer accelerator. It was supposed to be a volunteer role. I now carry the T on my head, like somebody that is looking for who will sponsor visa, even though I had no interest. But what that did was it put me in contact with the first cohort of founders that were building non-resident founders. So, what's the word now? Like expatriate type founders that are not from here,
but are building here.
Yeah. And so we had a cohort, 40 startups. A lot of them were from Africa. A lot of them were Nigerians who were, either early in their uni journey or people who had jobs somewhere. So we did it under UCL Advances, and that went really well. After summer, they asked me, "Do you want to stay and work till we figure out, if we can sponsor a visa or what you're doing?" Oh, okay, cool, I'm here. And that really connected me to the UK ecosystem because I spent time. UCL is very respectable. They had a school of business and management that was very good. The program was good. We had alumni from the program, like the founders of DeepMind was an alumni of the program, and so people were like very excited. But I did that until I was ready to move back to Nigeria. So I did that for a few months, and the end of 2015, I moved back to Nigeria, where I joined Venture Garden Group. So.
And it was from Venture Garden Group that you joined Google.
No, I did Ventures twice.
That's what your LinkedIn tells me.
I did Venture Garden Group, then Ventures Platform.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that Ventures thing used to confuse people. So I joined Venture Garden Group, and I always joked that I was catfished when I joined, because I saw Venture Gardens. I was like, this is a garden of ventures. I'm going to have so much fun. And then the business model at the time wasn't exactly ready for the ventures model. They figured it out. They have Greenhouse Capital, they have Greenhouse Studio, and all of that. But at the time, I remember talking to my the person I reported to, one of the exec leadership, and it was like, we can't pay you all this money. We brought you from UK. We can't pay you all this money, and you'll not be selling. So go and sell, Joe. Go and do BD work. So we're consulting for the government. I was doing a lot of stuff. I was going to Aso Villa every day for like 3 months, and then at some point I just figured that this isn't what I wanted to do right now. And I met Kola. Interesting story. I met Kola because my wife used to work for Kola.
Right.
So she's a PM, and she worked for his edtech startup. And you know how when you have a good staff and the person says, "Oh, I'm going to get married though. Let's even meet your husband now. Yeah. Let's see who's stealing you from us." So I went and met him, and a 30 minutes conversation turned into 3 hours. He even left us. I went to her. I said, "When people finish whatever I'm discussing, you come back." And part of the conversation, he mentioned thinking about starting a co-working space and possibly throwing some programs in it just to make the place bubbly, so that his investments that he was starting to make can make sense. So I said, "Oh, sure. I'll refer some people that can work for you, but I have a wedding to plan, and I still have a job." So I mean, it wasn't even come and work. It was just we're just sharing. So I get married. I quit DDD on my honeymoon. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I had an epiphany. And then I remember going back to Colin and say, "Hey, how's your project going? I have some time, so I can work from the space. It's really nice, container." I don't know if you saw the pictures.
No, I haven't.
It was container. It was the first version. They've moved now, but it was like containers stacked on each other. The buildings were artwork, sculptures, everything. So I went there, and they did interviews, and I didn't realize I was there for an interview, first of all. The team always teach me about it, because they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay, please, can you sit there?" I said, "No, it's fine. I'm going to be here by the bar." And they're like, "Does this one work, or does this one?" So I go into the meeting room and I see Kola, I see two other people like.
What's up, my
I
dude?
said, what's going on? So tell us about it. So how would you think about this? How would you think about it? So I thought we were just brainstorming. Literally, I thought we were brainstorming. So I even got to some point. I wrote on the wall. I said, I sat down. Then I said, so something about starting the job and all of that. So when would you want to start? I said, I don't want to start the job. And I said, so why are you here? I said, Kola, why am I here? It was hilarious. But then I eventually joined to lead the acceleration program, to deputize for Kola across some other things. And it was really good because, we were building we started as an incubator, then we moved to an accelerator, and then we were doing it out of Abuja. And I guess for me, it further buttresses the point that innovation can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be Lagos. It doesn't have to be physically grounded in one city. So we did that. We did 2 cohorts, and then we started investing out of pocket. So among the cohorts, we did Market Force. They used to be called Mobile Farms. They just had got an acquisition like a month ago. They just got acquired by Fair Money. Among the cohort, there was Triva Greek, doing fantastically well, spinning off. They had their own crisis, but they're doing well. So I like to think that in like 13 out of 13 startups, there's like one acquisition, one multiple millions of dollars worth of, and a few other companies are still alive. And then we started doing investments out of pocket. I mean, I can't speak for everything that happened after, but while I was there, we did Piggyverse, we did Paystack, we did Prentivo, we did Connected Analytics, we did a lot. Basically, after a year and a half, I had done 42 investments or so. That's a lot. But it's like that's my magic number. Because at Google, in 2.5 years, I did 43.
Okay, so 44 next.
Yeah. Well, at KickOff, which is my own investment vehicle today, I done about 41, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I do. Just that 40 number is So that's but
how did Google happen, and what would you say was the biggest impact on your Google time in your own career?
Yeah. Google happened in 2 directions. So first is around that period, the Google CEO was coming to Nigeria, Sundar, and because I had worked for Venture Guardian Group, and I was consulting with the presidency and the VP's office specifically, they reached out to a bunch of us. They still do. Hey, we are meeting with this executive. What are some of the things that you think? It's standard practice. So I wrote like this 1-pager of these are the things you should ask, these are the things you should ask, these are the things you should discuss, and these are the cases. And I sent it to one of his aides, and he's like, "Oh, that's good." I say, "Yeah, that's how I start doing now. Normal." And then I remember getting a call that, "Oh, do we want to be part of the meeting?" And I was out of town. Fast forward, so the Google CEO comes, the vice president meets with him, blah blah blah. Fast forward 3 months later, Google announces that we're going to launch this. We're going to launch. Oh, that's good. That's all the things I said.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I said it. I didn't say it because it's like a logical next step. There's a concept of the adjacent possible that I talk about all the time, which is if we all look at the same information today, we all come to the next idea of, okay, what are the possible things that we should do in addition. So this was like the logical next step. And so a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn, and a recruiter reached out to me for Facebook on LinkedIn, and I was talking to my guy at Microsoft at the same time. So I was like, okay, Microsoft I know because I'm a starter, but this Facebook and this Google, I know fraudsters when I see fraudsters. They are going to ask me for my bank account details. But no, the process went through smoothly. It's worth noting that at both times I'd quit my job. I'd already quit at Venture Platform. So one of the principles I imbibe is I don't quit from job to job.
Right. When you're done, you just quit and
I quit and I figure out the next step. My theory is if I take up another job offer, then I'm reacting because most times I'm like, oh, I don't like this job, or I don't like certain parts of this job, and I will quit based off of that. Versus if I quit and then I now look at that, okay, what do I want to do next? I understand that obviously I have certain you know constraints that allow me to do that. But I generally encourage people to do that. Like take some time off, figure out what it is that you actually want to do. You can have some birds in hand,
Yeah.
but figure out what you really want to do. So Google then happened, and I joined Google 2017, late 2017, and I remember core thing. And I'll forever be grateful to the global lead of Launchpad at the time I joined Launchpad. His name is Roy Geva. And Roy's thing was we work for big tech, but we're a bunch of crazy people who get shit done. So like I brought Roy to Lagos, and Roy was like, the traffic, Lagos. Last time I was here, because they hadn't come in like 15 years. And this guy, we went to Shiro, the restaurant by the beach.
Yeah.
And he's looking and he's looking. I said, 1 second. In my mind, I just knew this guy's up to no good. I've been drinking since, so I'm drinking and eating. And he just goes towards the beach and he's removing his clothes and he runs into the water. And I'm shouting, "Oh, you won't come back!" Because they're going to sack me. Not only will they sack me, they arrest you. I'm like, this is not that kind of water. Come back. But he was like, "What? It's water. Once you know how to swim." I said, "Don't be this type." But for me, that principle of just going, just do stuff, explain later.
Yeah.
I'm not saying break rules. My time at Google was really about using the skills that we had, the resources that we had, to benefit as many people as possible. So when I left Ventures Platform, there were three things that at that phase of my life, there were three things that were important to me. The first was impact of my work. I want to directly see that my work is improving the lives of people. The second was scale. So I want to improve lives at a massive scale. And the third was recognition. So at that phase, I was doing okay. We're from our little corner in Abuja, we're making noise. We did, Abuja, we're always pushing our stuff. Google allowed me to do all those three at a bigger level.
So you checked all the boxes?
Yeah, I checked all the boxes. Later on in my life, I would add remuneration to it. So let's get paid. At that time, I didn't care about getting paid. So I think what I did well at Google was I wasn't the first person hired by Google. But my team was becoming one of the most visible teams supporting startups. Like, we had been doing some startup programs before, but I was adamant that, look, this opportunity, they will know that they will know that yes, that there are people in Africa that are representing Africa here, because like the very first Launchpad, they was like, there's no budget. I was like, okay, but we're traveling so much. Like, yeah, we need to travel. Why don't we cut some of the travel and give founders money? So against all odds, my team were able to scrap 20K to give founders at least thanks for coming, grants for Launchpad. And I was able to also design, some programs, some of the programs that they run today, some of their flagship programs that they run today that involve Black people. In the Black, we're able to design and implement and hire the team. So I'm also proud of that. When I joined, it was just me and a colleague of mine. She's doing fantastic. She's still in the system. She's grown. Before I left, the teams I had almost tripled. People doing different functions, different program managers, research. And so I think about it more like, we joke that when they mention EMEA, the A is always silent because they're doing so much stuff in Europe and sometimes in the Middle East. I think my time at Google, it was more about making sure that the A stands and we export some of the good things that we have. So, we did flagship programs like our regular accelerators. We empowered partners, other incubation programs and acceleration programs. We also empowered like places like CC Hub, iHub, and that was good. But then the next step was like, okay, how do we make sure that the founders also connect to investors? So we started doing like investor startup mixers. We did the UK, Nigeria, UK Africa tour. We did the pitch drive with CC Hub also. They did the Asia leg. I did a bunch of, first we did the Europe one the year before, then next year we did Asia. So I think in terms of my time at Google, it's really about just making sure that prosperity of big tech gets to us really in Africa and show people that it's possible. A lot of people don't believe that tech is a source of getting people out of where they are. They see it's more like it's such a fantastic story. I left Google just before the pandemic.
Why? Was it like I'm done, impact done, scale done?
Yeah, so it wasn't like done, but I was done for that point. At that time, I had run a successful program, hired amazing people. We just launched our space. So like literally, we launched our space on the 20th of January. I quit 29th of January. It was like, fantastic. We had a big party, and the next day I sent him my notice. I think for me, I needed to remind myself that I'm a builder. And at that point, I had stopped building, and I'd stopped supporting people the way I wanted to support them. So I was supporting them via programs, but I wanted to be able to roll my sleeve and say, okay, let's go and talk in this client meeting. Let's open your source code. But I had certain restrictions, whether I was, I still am not allowed to open anybody's source code to. I can't look at customers' data because it's not handed over to me. I can't pitch with you. I can't do trainings, certain type of trainings. So I felt Google was, and being in big tech, not just Google, just being in big tech at the time was holding that back. So.
But you're back in big tech.
Yes. So I took my skills and my energy and I took it. I first did some consulting work in a gaming startup, gained some experience there, gained some money. That's the remuneration part I was talking about. And I took all of that and I started supporting startups. So I started investing very quickly. So I did, I think in the first 1 year, I did probably about 24, 25 startups in the first 1 year. And then it may makes it 2 years that I've been investing. But I was just rapidly building and working with founders. But the key thing for me is I'm first community focused. Like I really believe in the prosperity of the community. And so I asked, as much as I was doing what I was doing with KickOff, which is the name of my fund, KickOff is fantastic. KickOff allows me the freedom. But if you go back to those three things that matter, the impact, the scale, and the recognition. Recognition is nice, but the diminishing marginal utility of recognition fades off after a while. But the scale component, so you can still create impact, but when you lose that scale, you ask yourself that could I not be doing more than I'm doing? And so that's why I went back to big tech, and I was like, okay, who is serious about the continent right now? At AWS are. So at AWS today, I lead the efforts for early stage BD, which basically says we wake up every morning and we say, how can we make life better for startups in Africa?
That's a good one to wake up with every day.
Yeah, it is. And as long as you have the commitment of leadership in any organization that this is what we want to do. Ultimately, businesses are driven by the profit, but if a business says, okay, we're going to prioritize, the continent in a way whereby startups that are building can see us as genuine partners. They know we're making some money off of it, but they feel like, okay, this is who I'd rather be giving my hard-earned coins to. And so we say, okay, on the flip side, what can we also do? How do we create programs that make your life better? How do we give credit? So if you breach too much, I'll give you activate credit. If you want credit, you want credit, I'll give you credit.
Okay.
And what credit basically says is that, look, you're going to build, it's going to be expensive to build. Let's soften the question. Let's help you figure out if this is a venture you really want to spend a lot of time. We do this with partners, so every day I work directly with multiple partners. So I call it the one to few to many model. I have a few partners who then work with
a lot of people.
A lot of startups. So so I'm back in big tech, but I have lots of interests. In fact, I'm a man of many.
Obviously, you've done a lot: consulting, lecturing, IT, incubator, BD.
And I still lecture today, interestingly. So I don't know if you're familiar with the NUTM.
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, so Nigerian University of Technology Management. So I was a guest lecturer last year, and they invited me to lead the faculty of entrepreneurship. So
that's nice. That's something I want to do at some point.
You should. I think the first time we ever spoke was Launchpad, remember?
Yeah, I remember.
And then you reached out about being a mentor.
I was shooting my shots.
And you were on my next list, but I think
And then next I was like, yes, please.
I left. I remember. Yes, it was the cohort before I left. So I was like, should I tell her that I'm leaving? I was like, don't worry, she'll find out. But But I added you before I left, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not Google for startups myself.
Yes,
so.
because I actually added you before I left. I know that. You're on my list. You're in my handover.
I was like, I was just shooting my shot. Next thing I was seeing news.
Yeah, I put that Twitter thing. I think you're one of those people that look at your Twitter like, where are you going to? Don't go anywhere. Come back. No, so lecturing is fantastic. It's good to see people who are eager to learn.
Yeah.
But also being able to structure the interest. Because remember how when we were in school, certain lecturers made us love a subject, and when they changed that lecture, you hated it. Maybe you got promoted. And that's how I think about teaching. My approach is not I'm going to teach you something that will blow your mind. It's more like I'm going to make you fall in love with learning. You fall in love with learning about this stuff. So even if I'm not the one,
you can go ahead and
learn anything you want to do. So I lead the entrepreneurship model at NUTM in the Capsule project. I have other interests too, so Sporting Lagos. Let's go Sporting. I'm on the governing council of Sporting Lagos. That is very exciting. I'm a football head, like a proper football head. I play football, I watch football, I think football. I think football in terms. So when Shola wanted to start Sporting Lagos, I begged him not to start with a football club. Begged him. He said, no, football club it is. But the vision really is, three-pronged. It's football club, football academy, and infrastructure. And all of that is, the football club is community-based. Remember I told you, I'm all about community. In fact, the captions for this video should be, I'm all about community.
Okay, noted.
But it's a community piece. So what do people do in Lagos outside of going to eat and going to cinema? And
going
to club. That's how you hang out in Lagos.
Yeah.
To give them an extra thing to do, community, something they feel like we're part of it, we're informed. Academy is how do we grow the next generation of talent, and also that's where the sustainability piece comes in, because you make money doing all of that. But it's really about growing the next set of talent. Then the final piece of infrastructure is we really suffered in 1 year. You get to a stadium, they're doing concerts. I said concert. Concert is even nice. Maybe you have fun. They're doing burial on the stadium. You get there, there's no parking because they've given Asarudin one part, they're giving Nasfat another part, and they're giving Chosen another part. Literally, there's no car park. You get to the pitch. Like we did a time lapse of the pitch quality from when the season started to the end of season where we couldn't play there because there's actually water and mud on the pitch. So we're also saying how do we tackle and build world-class facilities, stadiums, gyms, and all of that. So that's how we think about Sporting Lagos. That's why it's a vision.
So you actually do think football?
Oh, I do think football. Like I have a few WhatsApp groups of football, like where we're either arguing each other, even Sabi play, or we're talking about football tactics, or we're trying to find good talent and scouts and all that, or Sporting Lagos management football.
That's amazing. Of all of these things that you've done in the last 15 years-ish, what would you say is the biggest lesson that stands out for you in your own journey? If you think about it, how we talk about lecturing and just being able to help people fall in love with learning, and someone was like, oh, I want to be a Fola, not Forbes this time, I want to be a Fola. What is the one thing that you can say, hey, maybe because I learned this lesson or this principle, this thread has followed me, and you could replicate it as well?
So I think the answer is luck, and there's 4 types of luck. There's blind luck, which is how you're born. You won the lottery, you found a coin on the road. You did nothing. You were just lucky. But then there's also 3 other types of luck in addition to blind luck. There's luck from motion, luck from uniqueness, and luck from awareness. So luck from motion speaks to you just keep doing random stuff. You just keep, like if I'm looking for, if someone says, oh, there's an opportunity to find $100, and I just start scratching the whole place. I'm just moving. I go to the next room. I keep moving. And then the person says, oh, the $100 is under the vase that is beside the violin. You're like, oh, because I'm moving around, I got lucky. I found it. But it's because of motion, because you're doing multiple things. So like my career, I'll put it to my career. Because I worked in an IT firm and I understood how to build computers, I learned about infrastructure. Because I was there, somebody beside me was the first serious web developer in Lagos. And I started learning web development. And because I started in graphics, I understand front end. So if
So
somebody
you just pick up
so
things
I
and
pick up
kind of
things.
consolidate
Literally,
at some
it's
point.
just because of all of that. So when it was time for a job, I had those skills I needed. Motion. Then the second one is awareness. Now, sometimes we say I was lucky and I saw an opportunity. Example I'll give is Shola Paystack. People say, oh, he's a good guy, he's a great guy, and he was lucky to have stumbled on payments when he did. But it wasn't just luck. It was the fact that he, at the time, was working for Nigerian Breweries. He was actually, he was a white collar guy with a job, but he had built stuff and he had built multiple software and he had built stuff for some banking guys where he knew that to do payments, even though there's razzmatazz that InterSwitch was taking us through that time and you had to pay 150k and bring your mother's blood, that fundamentally to build payments is just passing through a certain API through MasterCard or Visa, a switch. It's defining a switch. And okay, I'm aware of this. Let me try this. It worked though. But me, I was not aware of that because I don't know anything about payments,
Yeah.
So that's awareness.
So that's a luck that comes from also just exposure and reading and
Awareness.
just being in that
Yeah,
place.
because you know certain things and so you can put two and two. And then the last one is uniqueness. And that one comes from Sadiq Sadiq is a fantastic man behind the scenes. He might be in Leicester. And because I know that the last time I go to Lagos, and I'm coming back to London in another 2 weeks. And then I'm like, oh, I need to shoot a video. Who do I know that? Oh, Sadiq. Sadiq is a great guy. And because I know he has certain types of skill, I remember him. Now, Sadiq might be in his house, chilling, sleeping, and he get a call. And his friends are, man, this guy is so lucky. But it's the uniqueness of his skill set that brings it together. Now, all of this are theoretical stuff. But if you bring it down, fundamentally what you want to do in your career is you want to increase your chances of being lucky. The only one you have no control over is blind luck. Every other thing you can actually...
So you can keep moving.
Yeah.
You can be aware and expose yourself.
Open
and
your
you can
eyes
find your own specific
and find your own specific thing and let people know about it. My friend OO says this thing, always be pitching. And you're always pitching. So the illustration he gives is that if you ask somebody who's the quickest eater you can think about who's the most violent person who's the most quiet person. And it's not because the person woke up and said I'm the quickest eater, because you've seen the person eat multiple times. So in my career, it's been full of me, doing work that I wasn't getting paid for, being full of me showing up. There's somebody's event, I show up, somebody has a problem with their software, let's look at it together. We might not fix it today, but we looked at it together. Somebody has an opportunity, I pass it on and say, okay, think about this. So when they have an opportunity, they think, okay, let me ask Fola, he might know a guy. Might know a guy who knows a guy. And so luck as a standalone thing has been the bedrock of my career. Everything, I kid you not, every single thing I've done has been, I can point it to one of those four aspects of luck. Like, in fact, the least I've ever had is probably blind luck. Like, I can't think of a random thing that just happened to me other than my parents, the parents I was born to. Every other thing has been deliberate. Oh, you did something and I got lucky. That's it.
That's a great way to end this video. That's something I have, it makes total sense to me, because even if I think about my own career as well, I can see elements of that. Just having a unique set of skills or just having a unique insight into something can make you stand out, and then that gets you opportunities.
Exactly.
But then also it's about what you know, and then you're like, oh, I can actually do this, or I can actually move here. But some people don't know that those things exist, those opportunities exist, so they never go for it.
Exactly.
And then just exploring and doing many things helps you even find the things that you like or the things that you're good at.
Yep.
And then meet more people. And I think all of these things kind of fit into each other, because the more you do, the more aware you are, the more unique skills you also develop.
You just want to increase your surface area so that it's easier for you to get lucky.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
If I don't take anything else from this video, I think I'm taking just keep moving and keep increasing your chance of getting lucky. So that's a great one. Thank you, Fola, for sitting with me.
Thank you.
This is really good to learn about your career. I never would have thought you have done so many things. It just felt like, IT straight up to accelerator, but just seeing
it's the stories, everybody's stories.
Yeah.
Really, most people have stories. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this for I've watched other episodes. I had to prepare myself for this, and
When people say this, I'm like, you popular, you have to go to school. Just
we
sit
have
down
to.
with
You have to
me.
come correct. Like everything is calculated. The way I fold my legs.
Jigger.
No, but thank you for telling stories and for giving people opportunities. Like I told you, what inspired my change was a random Forbes article. No correlation to my career.
Yeah.
I probably, if I don't want to be anywhere near Forbes today.
But yeah, and your story would definitely inspire someone out there. So thank you for sitting with me. Amazing. And thank you guys for watching this video to the end. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't leave, I beg you. Help me increase my chances of luck. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace. Saying peace out.
Peace.